Kamwendo, let's now quickly check in with Sakina Kamwendo again, as she's part of a delegation from South Africa to Switzerland as the country looks for best practice across the world in areas such as science and innovation.
So Tech for Impact, in a sense, what we're trying to achieve is we want to leverage the cutting-edge technology that we have here at EPFL to address some of the most fundamental questions that we have currently on our world. So I'm talking about grand societal challenges, social and environmental problem. We hear more and more that climate change and global warming, all of these issues are real, and we need solutions. And we need solutions quickly. And I think our aim is, what we try to achieve with Tech for Impact, is to see how can we use our technology here, out of the 350 labs that we have, to address these issues and to come up with innovative solutions to some of the most pressing challenges of our time.
And speaking of those pressing challenges, one of the things I found very interesting was where you were talking about peak levels, and you were talking about water, you were talking about sand, soil, all of those things. Just talk to us about some of the more interesting ones in that regard, because I thought sand was particularly interesting.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. So in many ways, we hear a lot about peak oil because it affects our production, our consumption in very fundamental ways. Nevertheless, there are several issues with natural resources, non-renewable natural resources, that we know very little about. One of that you just mentioned is peak water. We have very strong issues when it comes about ensuring access to fresh water. This is one problem. You mentioned peak sand. Peak sand is basically this problem that we need sand for all our construction buildings, for everything. But we're running out of sand that can be used for constructions. It's not the sand that can be used from the desert. It needs to be very specific sand. So we see a lot of where countries steal sand from islands to continue their construction work. And then there's the same with peak soil. We are trying to have more and more efficient ways of having agricultural production, but at the same time, this is not good for our soil, which means that at one point in the very near future, we'll be running out of fruitful soil, and we cannot ensure continuous farming activities around the world.
So when you say countries steal soil from other countries so that they can continue building and doing the sort of expansion that they need to do, give us a practical example of that.
You want a concrete example? So a very concrete example is basically is Singapore, who is growing a lot. There is a lot of demand for buildings. There is a demand to grow the island even bigger. And a neighboring island, chain of island, is basically Indonesia. And there has been this practice of basically, I'm not saying stealing because often there might be even an economic return involved, but they're going there and they're taking islands that might not be inhabited and take the sand from there. With the overall result that basically the currents are so strong that they then go under the island and these islands vanish completely. So this is a serious issue that we're facing, and if you think about all the currents in the sea, everything is dependent on each other, it's interdependent. It's not just if one island vanishes that everything else functions as normal. This has fundamental consequences to how Indonesia will be run, how Indonesia will be seen in just a couple of years.
So Tech for Impact also working towards assisting with the Sustainable Development Goals. So how exactly are you impacting in that space?
Yes. Yeah, first and foremost, I think the Sustainable Development Goals are very important. They're a fundamental change in how we collaborate among countries. And for the first time, we have this historic agreement that we agree there is 17 goals that we want to work as a human community, not as just one country, but as a human community we want together work towards achieving these goals. So I think they're very important. What we're trying to do is we first and foremost mapped our research against the Sustainable Development Goals to see how does EPFL actually address the Sustainable Development Goals. And we found that 191 out of 350 of our labs are actually trying to achieve with their research some impact on the Sustainable Development Goals.
So going forward, Tech for Impact, what are you hoping, you could achieve in the short, medium and long term, and how exactly is that going to help humanity, especially around issues of sustainable development?
Yeah, I think the bigger vision that we have is really how can we as a society leverage our technologies for the greater purpose and for addressing these challenges that we're facing. I think it's a very, very inspirational initiative where we're trying to really see how can we be a blueprint also for other universities? Because I believe that in many cases, tech universities have not made use of their potential to play an important role in addressing sustainable development issues. So I think this is the long-term vision that we have, is to play this fundamental part. In the short and medium term, what we're trying to set up at the moment is to provide this neutral ground where, let's say, all stakeholders can meet to collaboratively work on solutions, to really use their collective intelligence to address many of the problems we're facing. More specifically, what we're doing is we're building up an NGO council, a corporate council, an academia council, and we're bringing these diverse actors together to really see what if we break down silos, what if we get out of our institutional comfort zone, to really see how we can, by bringing together our different backgrounds, come up with novel solutions, with really innovative solutions that could challenge in fundamental ways the way we work and we produce stuff and how we consume stuff nowadays.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for you. Thank you.